It is now time for us to start. So I welcome you all to this session on nature-based solutions for water sustainability, the peri-urban challenge. This is a session co-organized by the NATWIP Consortium and the Water Center for Innovation, or UCV. The program today is conducted in two parts. The first part is going to be about Project NATWIP and its interesting outcomes. Whereas the second part will be a presentation from the Water Center for Innovation about their aquaponics project. My name is Dr. Nandita Singh, and I'm going to be the host for this event today. I am an associate professor working at the Södertörn University in Stockholm, and also at the Water Center for Innovation. We will start first with an introduction to the project NATWIP. NATWIP stands for Nature-Based Solutions for Water Management in the Peri-Urban, linking ecological, social, and economic dimensions. This is a multinational EU cooperation project which started in 2019 and will go on until 2022. We are spread across the globe with 3 countries in European Union and 3 from the global south. So we are in Sweden, Norway, and Spain, and then from global south in Brazil, India, and South Africa. This project aims to contribute new knowledge to closing the water cycle gap in peri-urban areas. And we chose peri-urban areas because these are known to face diverse hydrological challenges, water scarcity, pollution, different kinds of climate-related risks. And what we wanted to do, very different from what many other NBS research might deal with, is to look at the question of how NBS interventions and NBS projects can become more sustainable. Therefore, we set out for ourselves 4 research objectives. The first one was to review the current knowledge on NBS so that we could identify the barriers, the lessons learned, and challenges in NBS implementation. And based on those findings, we wanted to design an assessment framework, which we have done. And this is a tool which can help in designing, analyzing, and evaluating NBS interventions, considering all the 3 sustainability dimensions: ecological, social, and economic. And with that framework, we have applied it at multiple case study sites in the different countries of our research to compare and draw generalizations. And finally, we are now in the process of creating a common narrative for facilitating the implementation of NBS for water in the peri-urban. Our basic hypothesis was that water can be sustainable, or water sustainability can be attained if the nature-based solutions are sustainable. I will also introduce you all to the NATWIP Consortium, and I'm happy to tell you that we are an all-women's team of multidisciplinary research scientists from 7 different institutions. With me, Dr. Nandita Singh as the consortium coordinator in Stockholm. And then we have Dr. Lina Suleiman from the Royal Institute of Technology, KTH. From Oslo, we have the partner Norwegian Geotechnical Institute with Dr. Sara Hale as the research leader and Dr. Amy Owen. From Barcelona in Spain, our partner is Technical University of Catalonia, or UPC. The research leader is Dr. Elizabeth Roca and supported by Andrea Ramirez. In Brazil, at Rio, our partner is International Institute for Sustainability with the research leader as Dr. Agnieszka Latavik, and supported by Ana Paula Lima and Elena Rodriguez. From India, the partner is AIN College, Patliputra University in Patna. The research leader is Dr. Nupur Bose and Dr. Ratna Amrit. From South Africa, our partner is Stellenbosch University. The research leader there is Professor Karen Esler and supported by Dr. Alana Rebelo. We are supported by teams of students and research assistants at all our respective institutions. And if you are interested in looking at our website, you can see the address down there. So now I stop sharing the screen and we will go over to the presentations from the project. And the first one will be from Spain, some findings from a review of current knowledge on NBS. This will be in the form of a video, but Andrea, you are here with us, so maybe you can say hello to the audience and while I share the screen.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm glad that we can share our presentation and our job of NATWIP with all of you at this time in Sweden and wherever you are in the world. So thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. We are Andrea and Elizabeth from UPC Barcelona. We are happy to share some results of NATWIP project. Let's begin.
There are 4 topics we are going to cover. First, what are NBS? Second, societal challenges and NBS. Third, NBS as a process. And 4, key factors. Let's dive into each topic.
Nature-based solutions are actions that are inspired by, supported by, or copied from nature, enabling natural processes into the technical responses to water management.
NBS is a comprehensive approach, linking the ecological, social, and economic dimensions of sustainability. It has the potential of delivering multiple benefits and simultaneous services.
Societal challenges are complex and dynamic, leading to technical, institutional, economic, and social uncertainty. Therefore, we need to address them in a systematic way.
In a review developed within the NATWIP project, we found that Europe has documented more experiences implementing NBS for water management in peri-urban areas. Although it's not always called NBS, working with nature is a global approach that serves the purpose of achieving the SDG goals.
NBS is understood as a process of dynamic change of 2 key aspects, problem solving and context specific. Problem solving relates to the bond with nature that provides a multidimensional solution. And context specific means that it is place-based and requires an integrative implementation.
In our review, we analyzed 35 implementation experiences of NBS for water management. We found that NBS, regardless of their type, scale, or location, address different water challenges and have the potential to provide multiple services and benefits, which are usually addressed as ecosystem services.
The review highlighted potential success factors for NBS implementation. First, communication among various stakeholders and organizations. Second, accountancy on their roles and responsibilities at multiple levels of decision-making and territorial scales. And finally, monitoring change and maintenance from different sectors, including the social.
Resilience is built through participation of different stakeholders, especially including those at the local level. NBS implementation should encourage consensus building, helping to raise awareness about why and how to adopt NBS to improve water management. Finally, it calls for teamwork.
I hope you enjoyed this first part of the presentation about NATWIP. Don't hesitate to contact us for further information. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. And we move on. Sorry for the little disruption we had with the presentation. But now we are going to listen to Anna for the NATWIP framework that we have prepared as a tool. So I'm going to share the screen.
Thank you, Nantita. Hello, everybody. Thank you for your audience today. Could you hear me well? Yes? So let's start. Hello, everybody again. My name is Ana Paula Lima, and I will talk to you about the framework construction, the framework built at NATWIP project. I'm a Master of Science in Geography and Environment, and I will show you the steps of this process. Please, next. To build the framework, we perform a systematic literature review about existing frameworks, aiming to identify gaps and patterns in other frameworks. In addition, we perform interviews with NBS practitioners, aiming to understand the needs and perceptions of these actors. Besides that, we have analyzed the NATWIP NBS case studies to select indicators as suggestions to each category indicated in the framework. Finally, it's important to highlight that we have organized the meetings between specialists through all this process. So in the next slide, you see the result of this. The result was the development of one operational framework, as you can see here, another conceptual framework. This operational framework is a complete scheme that can be followed and applied to construct and implement a nature-based solution in the beginning of a project or to monitor it after the project implementation. The operational framework has three main stages. The first is related to spatial context elements that should be identified and assessed to implement or monitor an NBS project successfully. The NBS must be designed according to this context. Here we also highlight the importance of defining the baseline indicators that make it possible to define the real impact of the project activities. In the second stage, in the second box of the operational framework, it's necessary to detail the NBS implemented and activities of implementation process. Aiming to support its evaluation and monitoring, we indicate process-based categories of indicators associated with three main sustainability dimensions: environmental, social, and economic. And finally, in the third and final phase, box 3, we recommend result-based categories of indicators that are also associated with sustainability dimensions. The indicators were categorized into process-based and result-based according to theory of change approach. The process-based indicators are classified in inputs and outputs, and they provide information about design and implementation of interventions. And the result-based indicators are classified in outcomes and impact, and they measure the effectiveness of the actions implemented. However, indicators should be selected case by case, depending on social context and on the project targets. That's why we just propose a broad categories. In the next slide here, you can see the concept before, please. The conceptual framework is a simplification of the operational framework. It summarizes the main concept and stages of the NBS process. This conceptual framework shows a simpler scheme trying to summarize the concept and the steps of the operational framework in a logical flow during different phases of the planning cycle. In this framework, the concept of co-benefits and well-being are highlighted as part of the results of the NBS, which might be identified in a medium, longer term, and in a wider longer term. Next, please. So here are the indicators. As I said before, we indicate context and baseline indicators in the first box. In the second, we propose process-based categories of indicators. And in the result, we propose result-based indicators. And finally, I would like to talk to you about the innovative factors of this framework. Although there are some frameworks addressing NBS on the literature, they often not capture the multiple and integrated impacts of the NBS, being mainly developed for urban contexts and also neglecting longer-term results, unintended consequences, co-benefits, and mainly the contributions to the Sustainable Development Goals. So the framework proposed here is innovative because it's a structure applicable to planning or to monitoring a nature-based solution. It has a commitment with Agenda 2030. It allows to identify long-term results, unintended consequences, co-benefits. It's aligned with 3 sustainability dimensions, not just 1 or 2 of them, and it's applicable at peri-urban spaces that are very neglected on the literature, and it's flexible to be adaptable to another settlement types. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Anna. And now we are going to move on to the results of application of a NATWIP framework to case studies. And we are going to begin with a look at the application in the Global South. So I invite Elana and Ratna to make the presentation. And I'm going to share the screen.
Hi, everyone, and thank you very much for being here. Okay, so this presentation is about nature-based solutions for water in the peri-urban. And we're going to be giving and sharing some perspectives from the Global South, so from India and South Africa. My name is Elana Rebello, and I'm presenting the South African work on behalf of myself and Professor Karen Esler, and we are from the Department of Conservation, Ecology and Entomology at Stellenbosch University.
The India case study is presented jointly by Dr. Nupur Bose and Dr. Ratna Amrit, that is me, and we are from AN College, Patliputra University, Patna, India.
So the aim of this presentation is to share the outcomes of the application of the framework you've just seen to case studies in the Global South. And we'll be exploring some parallels and contrasts regarding the contexts, the processes, and the outcomes of nature-based solutions in the peri-urban. We'll be looking at 2 case studies. The first is that of the Wildlands Trust, which is on alien tree clearing and revegetation in the Dwaas River in South Africa.
The case study presented by India is Jal Jeevan Haryali, or Water Life Greenery Mission, in short JJH mission, of Government of Bihar, India.
All right, so the water challenge that the South African case study was looking at was a shortage of water quantity and also to a lesser extent water quality. And the context of this case study is a degraded riparian system in a peri-urban area in a water-scarce region. And the river itself has become canalized, there's high nutrient inputs, and there is invasion by water-guzzling invasive alien trees.
The water challenge in the region under study in India is water quality as well as water quantity. And the problem context consists of lack of sustained access to clean and adequate water caused by climate change impacts, overuse of available water resources, rapid groundwater depletion, pollution of water resources, and water mismanagement arising from lack of intersectorial coordination.
So coming to the nature-based solutions themselves, what are they? The South African case is alien tree clearing and revegetation, and the scale that it was applied was fairly local in an upper catchment in the riparian zone only. This intervention was started in August 2018, and it involves firstly clearing of invasive alien trees from the riparian zone, as you can see pictured below. So this is mechanical clearing as well as clearing by hand, and then followed by active rehabilitation of the riparian zone. So this is planting of indigenous seedlings, and then very importantly, community engagement. So creating employment directly in the actions listed above, but also through various programs like recycling and entrepreneurs project.
The nature-based solutions in India, the type of NBS is retrieval of man-nature synergy through integrated ecosystem approach, through traditional water conservation methods, restoration of surface water bodies, and increasing green cover. The scale of NBS is multi-catchment across administrative divisions. JJH mission was launched in October 2019, and the interventions are identification and mapping of old water bodies such as ponds and reservoirs and channels harvesting runoff, renovation and rejuvenation of water bodies, tree plantation, and engaging communities through employment generation schemes in local decision-making in different ways.
Next slide, please. Thank you. We come now to the implementation process. So we're going to look at this in terms of the 3 dimensions of sustainability, starting with environmental. So for the South African case study, you can just go back one. Alien tree clearing improves biodiversity and ecosystem function and services. And the results of the South African side are from a survey where we interviewed community members and implementers. So this was their perceptions. And if there is no revegetation, we've learned that the ecosystem itself can be at risk, for example, from things like secondary invasion. If we could just go back to the process slide, please. So looking at the next dimension, economic, the source of funding is national government in our case, and there's really a need to look at more diverse funding models because the funding is insufficient and long-term secure funding is a challenge. In terms of the social dimension, some of the big challenges was an absence of a platform to engage landowners and also insufficient funding to engage community members sufficiently. So employment from the program is from the community directly, and also in a social aspect, political support is weak. There's strong cases of institutional fragmentation.
The implementation process study, the environmental side of implementation process are GIS mapping undertaken to identify water bodies, removal of encroachments and restoration of identified water bodies, tree plantation along water bodies to prevent soil erosion, and maintenance of local hydrological cycle. The economic aspect of it being that the financial investment is primarily from government, local participation is also encouraged, use of both government and privately owned lands is done. The social implementation is through government and NGO model, along with community and government support in all activities. Better management of the project sought through community and women training programs and participation. Plantation has been done as per the local needs and suitability. Awareness campaign has been done on a regular basis.
Coming to the results now, we'll also look at these 3 dimensions. So for the South African case, the social benefits, the people felt that through this nature-based solution, their connection to nature improved. There was a perceived shift in cultural values and practices, as well as improved social cohesion, and along with that, reduced crime. There was also improved health and well-being. In terms of environmental benefits, the community perceived increases in the following ecosystem services: water provision, material and energy provision, water purification and regulation, soil quality maintenance, life cycle maintenance, and recreation, ornamental, aesthetic, and heritage services. In terms of the economic benefits, there was job creation and people experienced an improvement of income with this type of job over other types of jobs that are available. And also the landowners in the area experienced reduced fire risk as a result of less of these alien trees around.
Coming to the results of JJ Commission in the India case study, the social benefits are increased community participation in project implementation and decision-making processes. Community ownership of community assets are increasing, reduced migration from peri-urban areas, and increasing dependency on agriculture. The environmental benefits are restoration of ecosystems, increase in number of surface water resources and soil moisture, shift from mono to multi-cropping, plantation activities leading to soil conservation, and problem of heat wave being reduced due to increase in moisture levels of air. The economic benefits are increased in agricultural production, improved income from increased productivity, and job creation.
Okay, looking briefly at the opportunities and constraints for building water resilience. For South Africa, the opportunities highlighted were to improve multi-level collaboration and engagement. So building relationship with landowners and stakeholders, the opportunity to build a more flexible funding model for alien tree clearing that would allow more funds for stakeholder engagement, the need to couple alien clearing with active restoration at scale. So really working at a higher spatial scale. In terms of constraints, some of the biggest challenges were institutional fragmentation, especially within government, sustainable and sufficient funding, also for activities like stakeholder engagement, the timescales. So long-term planning in this case versus the desire by society for rapid change. Very socially vulnerable communities who don't always recognize the value of the river system. And the potential is that if this nature-based solution is applied at scale, we could improve water security in these regions, reduce fire risk, improve biodiversity, as well as opportunities for recreation, social cohesion, and job creation.
The JJH mission in Bihar has provided opportunities of convergence of 15 administrative departments, has made people aware and work on issues of water conservation and other climate issues. Political and administrative will to work for climate change issues exists under this mission. In terms of constraints, community-related works need dedicated team and specialized human resource. Operation and maintenance of assets created under JJH mission is another constraint, and removal of long-standing encroachments on water bodies is still another constraint. This NBS has the potential to mitigate water stress for agriculture and irrigation activities, and the assets created would benefit the peri-urban community. Thank you.
And we'd like to thank everybody involved. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Alana and Ratna. And now we are going to have a presentation from the Global North, which I'm going to start now.
Thank you, Nandita. We continue the discussion of NBS in the peri-urban, now looking at NBS in the Global North. My name is Dr. Amy Uwen from the Norwegian Geotechnical Institute in Oslo, Norway, and I will be presenting together with Dr. Nandita Singh from Södertörn University, Sweden. So we have the same aims as introduced earlier. However, these are addressed in a Global North context, and they're illustrated using two case study sites. The first is NBS to hinder pollutant transport when opening waterways for flood mitigation in Skien, Norway. And the other is NBS for decentralized greywater management in Norrtälje, Sweden. Skien municipality is located in southeastern Norway, and the overall proposed NBS, which is in the early planning phase, is to open a river where sections of this river are buried beneath landfills. Opening the river aims to mitigate potential flooding as a result of climate change, and at the same time ensure good water quality as the excavations needed to open up the buried river disrupt the landfill. So the NBS solutions also include stabilizing the landscape, for example, by establishing infiltration barriers, capping the landfill, as well as redistributing materials.
Norrtälje is a municipality in Stockholm archipelago, so it's just next to the Baltic Sea. This is a very popular holiday home destination with more than 30,000 holiday homes. And many of these houses are changing to permanent residences, and a good number of these lie outside the municipal sewage network. Hence, drinking water pollution, seasonal water shortage, and eutrophication of the Baltic Sea are the problems here. The aim of the case study was to explore NBS application at decentralized scale as a sustainable means for improving greywater treatment and improving the water management.
The conceptual illustration for Skien shows the 4-kilometer stretch of the buried stream that's intended to be opened from the forest located in the bottom left corner of the illustration, through the town center and out to the Skien River to the right. Transforming the landscape will lead the water away from landfill areas, create space for flooding, and use vegetation to improve filtration along the stream.
In Norrtälje, the scale of the nature-based interventions is decentralized, individual property-based interventions, and the technology mainly involves use of biofilm combined with green phytotechnology in some cases. So here you can see some of the examples of NBSs that are being used and available in the market for this process.
The planned NBS is intended to improve water quality, and as such is an environmentally friendly and sustainable intervention with relevant regulating and cultural ecosystem services. Since this NBS is in the early planning stages, relevant social processes of stakeholder analysis and engagement have not yet been conducted. Currently, the municipality is the main driver with participation from different departments. The status of the economic processes is that the NBS intervention is quite complex and therefore expensive, and unfortunately, the economic resources are limited.
In Natalia, the implementation processes show that the wastewater treatment techniques, the technologies are extremely environment friendly, and there is very little use of external energy. The technology installation processes are also environment friendly, and these technologies are closely connected to regulating and provisioning ecosystem services. On the social side, the technology is easy to maintain and use. Very little engagement of the local users is there. The projects are multi-actor, individualized projects where the property owner takes the main responsibility and the initiative. The project processes are complex, and monitoring and evaluation of the impacts is so far quite neglected, and institutional support is poor. Awareness or educational activities are, as of now, quite insufficient and driven mainly by the private sector. The economic side shows that these are expensive and self-financed by the property owners.
The NBS interventions at Cheyenne are expected to improve water quality and mitigate flooding, as well as provide aesthetic and recreation value. From an economic perspective, the NBS would be proactive with regard to avoiding expensive costs related to flood damage. From a city development perspective, opening the river can potentially increase property value.
In Natalia, the environmental benefits are several. It helps filter out the harmful chemicals, microbes, and some even claim to remove pharmaceutical residues. The solutions are eco-friendly that promote water sustainability at local and the Baltic Sea region scales in many different ways. It helps maintain physical and mental health of the people directly as well as indirectly. Some of the options like the greywater dam have aesthetic and recreational values. And the people, they feel that they're empowered because they're able to participate in sustainable environmental stewardship. Then on the economic side, there is possibility of reuse of the greywater for gardening and growing crops. There is improved drinking water quality, which in turn promotes cost savings, such as people don't need to use filters. And then there is potential to increase the property value.
In summary, the NBS at Cheyenne offers opportunities as a best case example of NBS to tackle both water quality and water quantity, as well as functioning as a catalyst for city development. However, the constraints are a challenge. The landfill, the contaminated ground, and the subsurface add complexity and costs. Furthermore, the landowners and businesses may be uncertain to the efficacy of the NBS with regard to flooding. That said, there is a high potential to showcase NBS to address these multiple benefits, given the necessary funding is secured and the relevant stakeholders are involved early.
In Natalia, the opportunities are that there is a good supporting policy framework at the European and the national scales. There are multiple technology options available in the market, and the technology is easy to install, maintain, and manage at the household level. However, affordability could be a constraint. The municipal involvement being low and lack of awareness further add to the constraints. So in general, one can say that the NBS for greywater treatment offers a high potential for promoting water resilience in this transitional coastal area, but there's a need to address the constraints. Thank you. Now we present very briefly some views about comparison of the Global South and Global North experiences. And I will try to share the screen. It is a recording.
Concluding remarks. It's challenging to make any north-south generalizations regarding this topic, partly because of the relative scarcity of published studies in the Global South and, up until now, inadequate framing of the problem. Using the framework developed in this project, our case study presentations have shown that environmental, social, and economic context matters, with each case study highlighting distinct sets of opportunities and constraints, and also some commonalities. In the Global South, for example, the greater presence of socially vulnerable communities means that governance of rapidly changing peri-urban zones is constrained, leading to insufficient community engagement, damage to water systems because value is not recognized, and over-reliance on centrally controlled government funding sources. Opportunities therefore emerge to upscale efforts through improving collaboration and engagement, building social resilience, and designing more flexible funding models. In the Global North, low public-private support and involvement, lack of awareness, and affordability were also mentioned as common constraints across case studies. While technologies are readily available, there is a need to further build awareness and engagement to develop a more supportive policy framework. Indeed, in a systematic review of global peer-reviewed literature and the South African grey literature, we found that education, training, research, and knowledge were most commonly described as enablers for the Global South, while innovation, technology, and experimentation were described for the North. Inadequate funding, financial resources were commonly reported barriers for the South, while urbanization, urban sprawl, and population pressures were described for the Global North. So to design appropriate interventions, plans, and policies, we have to draw from these and the total pool of studies to develop useful complementary or alternative approaches while acknowledging that North-South context matters. Thank you.
Thank you. So we can take maybe just 2 questions.
We have 4.
Yeah, but we take 2 now and then we go on to Donatella's presentation and then we have more time for questions. So which ones are we taking, Andrea?
Okay, 1 second. Amy, if
I could just say, well, maybe Ana Paula, you prepared your question for Brazil. Should I repeat it?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there was a question talking about the International Institute for Sustainability. Can you give us some example of projects being positively ran here? Are you aware of any projects that are in collaboration with Indigenous people?
Thanks a lot for the question. Talking about International Institute for Sustainability, I can put the site after in the chat and you can see more details about how we work. But it's an independent think and do tank focused on understanding the relationship between human society and the environment. And our objective to promote sustainable land use, in particular biodiversity conservation, ecosystem service provisioning, and other things. But to focus on the question, there are many projects in Brazil using nature-based solutions, but in most part of time without this name, because it's a new approach in the literature. But this practice involves mainly conservation. Okay, conservation is a type of nature-based solution, and it's very applied in Brazil. Conservation and restoration. Although there are many restoration and conservation initiatives aimed at the better provision of ecosystem service, I have no knowledge specifically about experiences working together with indigenous people. Here in IIS at Rio de Janeiro, we are very distant of the Amazonic watershed, where there is the biggest concentration of indigenous people in Brazil. But actually, indigenous people has a lot to teach us about nature-based solution. Since the most ancient civilizations, these peoples have used nature in a balanced way and as solution to their local challenges and problems. They respect the social, economic, and environmental dimensions. So they know how to live in a sustainable way, we can say. And I think it's a very interesting approach to research and to develop, but I don't know about specific projects that already work with this here. But here in Brazil, different of the European context, the biggest part of initiatives about nature-based solutions operate in rural areas, because these areas here are very strategic to the provision of ecosystem services, mainly water. And a great effort has been made to improve the provision of water quality and quantity here. And several projects have implemented the payments for environmental service. It's a tool which encourages rural producers to recover degraded areas of their properties. They receive this encouragement with money, and they improve their properties, making conservation and restoration. And the result of this is the improvement of the water quality and quantities in that watershed. So I think it's the most known examples and practices we have here. But about indigenous people, I think it's a very interesting approach to do this.
Thank you, Anna. I think we will move on to the next presentation and then come back to more questions. Donatella, we welcome you for making a presentation on aquaponics.
Thank you, Nandita. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And thank you everyone for joining this session. So my name is Donatella Acquaviva, and now I am a project manager at the Water Center for Innovation. The Swedish acronym is UCV. And I'm going to present you the activities that we are doing here within aquaponics and the benefits that this circular farming method can provide to the peri-urban. Please, Nandita, thank you. So UCV is a department of Campus Roslagen, a municipal company in Norrtälje in the Stockholm region. It has been appointed by Water Europe as a living lab. Water Europe is a group within the European Commission that works with innovation in the water sector. And they define living labs as entities that drive innovation by integrating research and innovation processes in real-life communities and settings. What we do here is running and partaking in national and international both R&D and innovation environmental projects, where we involve the academia and the public and the private sector. We organize and co-organize courses for different stakeholders and open days for civil society. And we have test beds for decentralized water and wastewater systems, because as Nandita mentioned, here in the municipality of Norrtälje, we have about 30,000 of this type of systems. So our focus areas are the decentralized systems, as I said, the nature-based solutions. For example, we work with wetlands construction and restoration. And we also work within with the water, food, energy nexus. And it is within this framework that we have started working with aquaponics about 2 years ago. The reason why we started working with this circular method is because there are several challenges that the food sector has to face. And if we look under a water point of view, we have to consider that agriculture and fishing are the main water consumers in Europe. In Sweden, in peri-urban areas, the water source for agriculture is mostly groundwater, and this puts a huge pressure on the groundwater sources. And then, as mentioned before, the Baltic Sea is highly eutrophicated, and agriculture and aquaculture are two important contributors to this phenomenon. Please, next. Other challenges that we have to consider are the fact that agriculture is a sector that will be particularly affected by climate change. 90% of the global fish stock are fully exploited or overfished. The world population is estimated to be of 9 billion people by 2050. And then if we look at Sweden, the country strongly depends on food import, especially for fruit, vegetables, and fish. So the food sector has the big challenge of how to nourish the world in the next decades in a more sustainable way. And to do this, several initiatives and methodologies are being explored and implemented, and aquaponics is one of these. So aquaponics is the combination of hydroponics, which means cultivating the plants in water, and fish farming. It is based on the symbiosis between the plants, the fish, and the bacteria. And what happens is that the fish feces from the fish feces are degraded by the bacteria into nutrient elements for the plants. And then the clean water goes from the plants to the fish. This process of degradation of the fish excreta happens to the nitrification process, which is a two steps oxidation. So the ammonium from the fish feces is first oxidized into nitrite and then into nitrate, which is a form of nitrogen that is not toxic for the fish. The main system components in an aquaponics are the fish tank. Then the water goes to a mechanical filter for the settlement of the bigger particles. Then we have a biofilter, which facilitates the nitrification. The water goes to the growing beds, and there are several types of growing beds. And then finally, the water goes back to, to a fish tank in a circular loop. Then this, if the system is coupled, if it is decoupled, the water only goes from the fish to the plants and not vice versa. But there are several benefits that aquaponics provide to the peri-urban and the rural areas, both under the environmental and the social and economical point of view. So these methods allows to use only 10% of the water used in traditional agriculture. There are no nutrients runoff into the environment, and there is no use of pesticides or antibiotics. Otherwise, the bacteria would die. And then under the social and economical point of view, we have to think that it is possible to grow indoor and all year round. It requires a reduced workload compared to traditional agriculture, and this makes it accessible to more people. And also it brings innovation and economic development in rural and peri-urban areas. So what we are doing here, here we are running different projects and initiatives in order to make communities in peri-urban areas more self-sufficient, but also more sustainable. We organize seminars and webinars. We have built a small-scale aquaponics demo in our facility, where we grow tilapia and different types of spices and salads. We have activities for schools. We have created also a website for the kids. And in October, we will start a project to create a learning platform for entrepreneurs who want to start an aquaponics system. And also, we have just started a 2 years professional education. This is after high school education. It is the first one in Sweden of this type. The education has been designed together with the industry, and it consists of 4 main parts. So the agronomy, the aquaculture, the aquaponics, and the entrepreneurship. And if you're interested or if you're experts in this field, please feel free to contact Amelia. Here is her contact. She's the responsible of the education. And we are eager to collaborate and also to have external lecturers. And then I thank you all again. And if you have questions, you can also write to me.
Thank you very much, Donatella. I think that was very informative. So now we can take some more questions. Is there any question for Donatella? Okay. So we can take another question from maybe from the Global South.
Ratna, would you take the one?
Which one?
The question regarding how the
on NGO and community participation.
Yes.
I think. First, let us take the NGO one. So, right.
Please be brief, Ratna. Okay?
Yeah. NGOs are involved in it. Like you have Make Pine Abhiyan. This is the name of an NGO, Eklavya. All these are associated with this Jal Jeevan Haryali mission. And coming to the community participation, this kind of a program cannot be successful without community participation. So in this, I would also like to bring women, participation of women. This has been done through another organization which is called Jivika, that is Rural Livelihood Promotion Society. Here you have self-help groups which are completely the basis of women. And these women also have been given training, and the forest department has also is being involved in this. They give the private players, they support them, they give them training and ask them to raise saplings, and they also give them raw materials like polybags and seedlings, etc. And last year, I think something to the tune of I think 7 lakh saplings were planted by these Jivika Didis. They are called Didis, or which means sister in English. So, and even at, for example, if you take the ahar pine, which is being revived, you would understand, people from India would understand it better. Ahar pine is a kind of reservoir and channels coming out of these reservoirs. So they run through the field, the agricultural land, and in India it is very, very fragmented, the agricultural holding. So they pass through a lot of holdings. So unless the community participates in desilting process or in construction of new ponds, so community participation is very, very essential.
Thank you very much, Ratna. We take one more question to Donatella.
Yes. So the question is how long the aquaponics system has been running, and how do we manage crop plagues and fish illness? So we have built the demo about 2 years ago. And for the crop plagues, we clean them manually. Then we have the adhesive like yellow strips, and we also use the antagonist insects. And for the fish, actually, we didn't have fish illness, because since our system is not commercial, they are not really dense. They have good space. The fish have really good space. But we had mortality due to stress, to change in water quality. And in that case, you stop feeding the fish for a while.
Thank you. And I guess we don't have more time to answer questions. They will be left halfway.
The questions have been answered by the chat for everybody, and we have been 55 persons in this session, so.
Good, thank you so much. I thank the entire NATWIP team for their efforts, and Donatella and UCV for participating in the whole process and today's program. And I hope that we have been able to convey, at least to some extent, what we are trying to do in NATWIP. And also the aquaponics project is also another example of how we can think about moving more sustainably ahead. Because it's not only the question that there should be NBS all around. There are many NBS going on because that's the latest trend, I would say, in the development sector. But what is important is that the NBS has to be sustainable, and the sustainability has to come along all the 3 dimensions of sustainability. Unless it happens, we cannot attain water sustainability. We cannot achieve water resilience in these in the times of stress, the turbulence that is coming up because of so many different kinds of crises, which all of us know about. So we have to think about how we can make our nature-based solutions sustainable. Thank you for joining today. Thank you, everyone. Big thanks to the audience as well. And we hope to carry on the good work. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.